We really, really want to support our spouse and see him or her do amazing things. And I think a lot of us military spouses can say that. But then there is this part of us too that we don't want to lose our professional identity, and we want to continue to flourish and do awesome things. As I started needing to tap into different communities, I looked at the military spouses and veterans that were sitting there that were just fantastic. I mean, resumes that are just off the charts. And that's when it hit me. I'm like, why are we not utilizing these people more?
Welcome to Drop and Give Me 20, where you learn keys to entrepreneurial success as Lindsey Germono interviews business owners with military backgrounds on what works and what doesn't. Listen as they focus on the stories, both challenges and wins, that military entrepreneurs have faced in growing their businesses.
I love my guest today, and she does amazing stuff, so I'm so excited to have her on. So please join me in welcoming Jess Bertsch. Jess is the owner of Powerhouse Planning.
Hi, Lindsey. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I was reading some of your secret or your fun facts, and we have one in common. I originally went to school to be a news anchor as well.
Ah, awesome.
And look at us now.
We somewhat use our degree, right?
Right. Well, what made you not pursue that? I'm just curious.
I always call it my senior life crisis in college, where for me, media became really negative driven. And I was kind of looking for something a little more positive. And so truthfully, I think that's kind of how I fell into the world that I'm in now, where I still get to do marketing and communications, but it's more positive spin and I don't have to be in that much negativity.
Right. Well, you sound great. And I think that you should definitely pick up this news anchor thing, as if you're not too busy running an enterprise.
One more side job.
Right. So Jess, why don't you tell us a little bit about Powerhouse Planning and what you guys are all about and more about your business?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kind of give you, I always tell everybody the elevator pitch. Every time we interview someone for Powerhouse, they kind of just want to know any and everything about us. So we're about 4 years old, and it started initially because I was taking on my own freelance projects, which my strengths were in marketing and PR. And as we started to get more contracts, I wanted to expand the business, and I needed to expand the business, truthfully, because I couldn't do it all. And so that's when I started to tap into military spouses and veterans to become the Powerhouse workforce that would be doing project-based work. So they're our freelance team. And we do anything from marketing, which when we say marketing, it's a little different than most companies, but we do large-scale event planning and conference and trade shows. And then we also do internal and external communications, which can be internal to the company, which would be like newsletters, executive communications. And then external communication is the stuff when you would think of branding, brochures, and that type of stuff. And then we do company development and business development. So it can be anything that grows a company internally and then a company externally. And we've grown over the past year where we've switched over to doing really primarily large-scale retainer contracts where a company hires us, and then we provide these services to them with a set hours each month that are in each of those different areas.
So the benefit of them signing up with you guys is like if it's a short-term project that they need help with, instead of burdening weighing down their current staff, then they can take you guys on. You have a staff of already set, freelance experts within whatever that person might need, and that way they don't have to, put that on any of their internal, employees or their staff.
Yeah. And a lot of times, companies, they don't have the staff member that they need for certain projects. Like someone writes a book, for example, they may not have an editor. And if they've written the text, then they probably shouldn't be editing it themselves.
Right.
So they've come to us to edit a book for them, which of course is going to be a long-term contract because you can't do it in a week. So that's like a 2-month contract where we will edit an entire book. And, that's how most of the things people come to us, because they have a need of something in their company that they can't currently do with the workforce that they have.
I know you have 5 different, I was on your website earlier, you have kind of 5 different pillars. Yep. I have 3 personally. My business has 3. So I love looking at kind of how everybody tries to have an elevator speech to encompass all of that. And it's very difficult for me too, because I'm like, well, it kind of all depends. We do traditional media buying, but we also do social media, but we also do this. And if I don't do it, I can find somebody who does. So your 5 pillars that I noticed were business development for an organization, and then company development. So like team building, external communications, like you mentioned with the flyers and press, and then the internal, which would be like newsletters. And I can attest that stuff takes a lot of time. So please hire Powerhouse Planning to just do that for you. I've spent hours working on stuff like that, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Last but not least, conferences and trade shows. So how does that work? I mean, do you have a team? And you just said freelance. I mean, I know a little bit about you guys, but tell the listeners how you have that set up as an operation.
Yep, totally. So, well, the backstory, like elevator pitch of what Powerhouse is, it started back in the day when I started doing my own freelance projects. After I kind of left the corporate world, I started taking on marketing and PR work, and then contracts started to come in, and it was too much work that I couldn't even handle. So I was trying to figure out what kind of pool could I tap into and who could help me build this workforce that I wanted to build. And that's when I realized I should tap into I always say, they're the most overly talented, underutilized population out there, and that's military spouses and veterans. 80% of our workforce is that population. And so it's freelancers that work from home. We're a virtual environment, and we fill in kind of the holes that companies need, whether that be a graphic designer on staff for a month or 2 months, or maybe it's someone needs IT support for 6 months. And so we're that team that comes and fills in, and then they don't have to absorb hiring a full-time employee and having that overhead cost that sometimes is tricky for small businesses.
Wow. And I want our listeners to really grasp that you are also a military spouse, but you have a drive and a focus to employ other military spouses. And we hear some of it in the community. I know Our Riveters is, one of those organizations that's created to help support military spouses. But what's the story behind that for you?
For me, I mean, I think we can all say, we really, really want to support our spouse and see him or her do amazing things. And I think a lot of us military spouses can say that, but then there is this part of us too that we don't want to lose our professional identity, and we want to continue to flourish and do awesome things as well over a 20+ year career. As I started needing to tap into different communities, I looked at the military spouses and veterans that were sitting there that were just fantastic. I mean, resumes that are just off the charts. And that's when it hit me. I'm like, why are we not utilizing these people more? And Powerhouse is kind of unique because but this past year, and we really decided to hone in on retainer-based contracts. And so what's neat about Powerhouse is a lot of times companies will sign on with us and they get a team of 4 or 5, let's say, military spouses or veterans, freelancers as if we just want to say freelancers, kind of who I'm referring to. Mm-hmm. But it's a team of freelancers, and we work with them during the entire contract. So they're working with the same exact team, the same IT guy, the same, graphic design gal, and it's very, very cool because it's these companies that are giving back to that population that needs jobs, but then they are getting these long-term contracts where they get to build the branding for a company for a long period of time.
What has been something that anybody's listening and they're a military entrepreneur that you want to share with them that you've learned or had to overcome in this 4-year, amazing space that you've created for yourself?
Gosh, there's so much. And that's why I love talking with newer entrepreneurs, because I wish I would have had that, someone to be able to speak that life into me 4 years ago. But truthfully, I think one of my biggest, mistakes back in the day, I didn't pay myself right away because I was so busy investing back into the company. And I wish I would have done that a little earlier, just because I think when you start to pay yourself, you start to say you are worth it, and you start to put value on yourself, which I think is incredibly important. And that took me a while to realize. And so I think that was one thing I learned.
At what point did you end up finally paying yourself?
Probably about 9 months to a year. I wanted to make sure that I had savings built up, especially when you have a freelance team, because I wanted to make sure that I always had that money in the bank so that I could pay people out while money was coming in. But it was tricky because then I think you start, on those yucky days, which we know we all have them. you start to realize that there are all these people that are getting paid and you're building this awesome business, but you have yet to pay for yourself. So then that's when it, at the 1 year, it was probably about the 9-month or 1 year mark. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, even if it's a couple $100, like, let's pay myself something. We've grown insanely each year, which at some point I think it's going to level out. But yeah, I would say it was probably 9 months to a year.
Okay. So pay yourself, people. So what else? I mean, I know you've been published on Next Gen Male Spouse, which is a fantastic resource. If those that are listening have not gone there, please do check out nextgenmalespouse.com. They host a variety of topics. And Jess, you published something, Dear New CEO Self, and it's like a letter to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like I was talking about how I wish 4 years ago someone would have come to me and been like, hey, Jess, let's chat. Let me tell you, 10 things you need to know before you start going.
Right.
And that's exactly what I did. I just wrote this article because I wanted new CEOs to kind of have someone that could just, like I said, speak life into them and say, here's how you can go about building a business. Here's some things to think about that I know I didn't think about it 4 years ago.
Recently, and our listeners won't know all the details about this, but I had reached out to you with some, hey, can you mentor me on this? And you were amazing at that. Did you have a mentor, or do you still, do you have a mentor now?
I do. I've been really, really fortunate. When I was in the corporate world, the person that was the CEO of the company, he has continued to kind of just stay in my life over the years. And he, still to this day, I mean, he's the person that, if I have any question about, am I doing this financially right? Or what do you think about this new idea? Like, I'm thinking about spinning up this I'll never forget last year, I wanted to do kind of a whole new area of business, and I called him, and I'm pumped about it, and he's just like, no, absolutely not. I'm like, what? But I needed that balance in my life because he was able to tell me what the negative aspects of that were, and financially and mentally, everything. And I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm not ready to do that now,
Right. And juggling, Powerhouse Planning and your family and personal life. That's awesome. To know you well enough to be able to say that. And you're open to the no's too. Or I guess not a no, but hey, think twice about it.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and I think you need to have that in your life. And just like you and I mean, you do, like you just said, I have 3 children, a husband who currently is sea duty tour. So he's just, out to sea every couple months, home every couple months. So it's crazy having 3 little kids plus his schedule and running the business. So it's nice to have a professional mentor that can just kind of coach me through the business aspect of life.
Okay, so paying yourself, find a mentor. And what was something else that you wanted to share that I believe that you touched on in that article?
Mine is definitely to do good and be good. Like I was saying, Powerhouse has grown, and I'm very, very proud of that growth. But I think as Powerhouse grows, it's up to us to also kind of be the good and do good. And so every month we sponsor something, or we do something with a chunk of our revenue that just goes back into the world. And that can be anything from, right now we currently sponsor a girl through World Vision, and we kind of help get her fed and things every month. And then we also, this past month, we sponsored a young man that wanted to be able to go to New York and California and do all of these artistic kind of opportunities. So we sponsored him to be able to get to those camps this summer.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that you guys did that.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just like I said, there's no rhyme or reason to it. Like it's just wherever there's a need, we just try to do something that is kind of above and beyond and unique that needs done in our world.
Wow. So how do you stay focused on your mission when you're being pulled in all of these different directions?
Well, and this just for me personally, but I have gotten to the point where, like I just mentioned, everything kind of I have going on in my life, I've learned that I also have to have a freelance team that supports Powerhouse, which is kind of unique. But it got to the point where I was trying to do everything. And that's when I realized I need people to support me, just like we support other companies. So I have people help me with administrative tasks, actually, quite a bit of stuff, marketing, social media. I've gotten to the point where I have people that help drive some of those efforts because it was me for a long time. And what I realized, I was spending so much time and energy in things that, number one, I'm not amazing at. And number two, not only am I not amazing at it, but it's not what I love doing, that I realize maybe I should find people that love doing it and are amazing, and they can help drive my business. And that's how I get it done. I mean, I use the Powerhouse team for Powerhouse itself.
So those of us that are on a solopreneur or lean budget when we're starting out, obviously some of these things will accumulate over time when you can start to develop a team. I've often used trade or, just conversations on, I can't, maybe my third month in when I launched, I can't afford this membership, but let's think about a way that we can kind of trade services. Have you ever done anything like that? Or is that just me and I'm crazy?
I haven't. I would love to, but honestly, I haven't. I think it's a great idea. And truthfully, it's probably more cost saving than anything. So yeah, it's brilliant. We just, I've never taken that avenue.
Nice. Okay, awesome. Well, we are coming up to told you 20 minutes will fly by, this is about the 17-minute mark. And so I want to encourage those listeners to reach out to you and follow Powerhouse Planning. So why don't you tell us where to find you online and social media?
Yep. So you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn, and then our website, which if you go to our website, it'll take you to both of those places. So that's probably easiest.
Okay.
But our website is powerhouseplanning.com. Very simple. Powerhouseplanning.com.
Perfect. I want to close with something that you shared with me, that you were a DJ.
It's true.
Can we hear a little tunes, or have you hung up your headset for that?
Did I put in there what I did is it was a jazz and blues and a heavy metal show. So you don't want either of those.
Oh my gosh.
You will lose all listeners.
I think I said this in another interview. I said, if you could get the resume or all of the jobs that a military spouse has performed from college to today, it's going to be just a hot mess of different experiences and just all kinds of things. I know I can speak for myself on that, but, you danced ballet semi-professionally.
Yep, that's true. Back in high school and college. Yes.
So you wanted to be a news anchor, you were a DJ, and then you danced semi-professionally. I have no doubt in my mind that there isn't anything that you can't do. And I am so excited to have you as one of my guests on this show. And I'm so, so thankful that we could get this in, because I know you're very, very busy. So I really want to thank you for your time. And if everybody listening wants to reach out to Jess, I mean, you heard her story. She's supporting military spouses. If you are considering entrepreneurship, definitely reach out to her so you can get some of that. And I'll also share that article that you wrote, Dear New CEO Self, with 10
Perfect.
things I wish somebody would have told me when I started my business. And I love that, actually. So I'll send that out to those that are listening. If you need that, you can just get in touch with us and we will share that with you. So Jess, thank you again. And I really, like I said, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Drop and Give Me 20, brought to you by Germono Advertising Company in Norfolk, Virginia. Please visit our podcast in iTunes, click on subscribe, and leave us a review. Your support goes a long way. When you subscribe and leave reviews, it helps the guests on our show as well. Jump in and let us know what you think. You can also follow all of our guests on the Drop and Give Me 20 Facebook page. We have Instagram and Twitter. Those handles are Give Me 20 Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey Germono, and I appreciate you listening to the show.